we had a women's group once, and we were talking about no limits for women. Right. And I remember, the thought came to me, like, the world says, here's my limits. That's it. That's my limits. I
Right.
can't move outside of that. But I'm like, yeah, no, my limits are more like this. I saw it already like this. Okay. And when they said no limits, I said, you mean it's even bigger than I think? Right. That's the logic my young mind was doing. And
Right.
I was like, does that mean I can go to medical school? Now, where did that come from? I don't know.
Welcome to Journey into the Mystic, a podcast where we uncover the powerful intersections between the mystical and Eros. Eros is that which connects. Each episode of the podcast delves into themes of liberation, healing, connection, guiding those seeking deeper self-understanding and richer relationships. We explore practices and philosophies that unlock new dimensions of being, diving deep into mystical states and their significance for personal growth and well-being. Mystical states are marked by and defined as profound changes in perception, thought, and emotion, offer experiences of unity, timelessness, and deep insight. They are often described as ineffable, whether induced by meditation, prayer, psychedelics, flow states, orgasmic meditation, or spontaneous occurrences. These states evoke feelings of transcendence and profound connection. Join us as we explore the path to mystical states through in-depth discussions, expert interviews, and personal stories, offering insight, inspiration, challenges, and of course, humor at every turn. I am your host, Rachel Pelletier, an erotic practitioner and explorer of mystical states for over 18 years. I bring a wealth of knowledge and compassion to the podcast. As a licensed advanced drug and alcohol counselor and certified clinical trauma professional, I walk with people through addiction and trauma, reminding them that what they think is wrong with them is often what is most right about them. My passion for rewilding humanity and a love for all things wild infuses each episode with a unique perspective. Join me on this journey through mystical exploration and liberation. I am very excited today to welcome my dear friend, Dr. Teresa Diaz. Dr. Teresa Diaz is a highly accomplished medical professional with a diverse background that bridges the fields of medicine, psychology, and nutrition. She holds a medical degree from Rutgers University and is a skilled OBGYN surgeon. With a major in psychology from San Francisco State University, Dr. Teresa has a deep understanding of the emotional and psychological components involved in lifestyle change and weight loss. She is certified in age management medicine, a member of the Institute for Functional Medicine, and has studied holistic nutrition at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. While her credentials are impressive, what truly sets Dr. Teresa apart is her remarkable personal journey. Growing up in the ghettos of New York, she faced and overcame unimaginable trauma, including childhood physical and sexual abuse, racism, poverty, and sexism. Her resilience and determination led her to lose and keep off 120 pounds, and she now passionately believes that with the right guidance and support, any challenge can be conquered. Dr. Teresa's blend of professional expertise and personal experience makes her a compassionate and inspiring leader in the field. She is also a deep friend of mine and someone I admire and respect greatly. So, without further ado, here is my dear friend, Dr. Teresa Diaz. Hi.
Hello, good morning. It's not
How are
morning. Where are you, in New York?
Now I'm on the land.
Oh, awesome. I should have known. Let's see.
Yeah.
You look beautiful.
Thank you. So do you. I'm so excited we're finally doing this.
Yay.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to start by asking why you decided to become a gynecologist. Was there something specifically that inspired you? What was your journey with that?
Wow. It's interesting because when I started medical school, I was 35
Mm,
and I never thought that I would be doing anything but OBGYN.
mm,
That it was never an option that I wanted to do internal medicine, or I thought if I couldn't do OBGYN, I do like the GI system, but but mostly OBGYN has been my thing. So, and as a teenager, when I go back, I think my interest in sex and how sex worked, and I remember we were probably one of the first or second year of middle schoolers that got sex education in
oh,
school,
wow.
right, in New York. And I mean, this is like in a time when in grammar school, we were not even allowed to wear pants.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And it would be really snow, all the snow would be on the ground and my legs would actually sink into the snow, but I had to have bare legs, right?
Oh
So,
my God.
and so, um, so having sex education was, new and I remember saying to my mom, uh, what could I possibly learn about sex education? I thought I knew everything about sex.
Right.
Right? It was this like, I don't know-it-all little attitude that I had as a grader. So I had an interest in sex then. I remember like, and it wasn't really anything about anything, intimacy or couples. It was really just very scientific, but I still loved the science. Like I could
Right.
name all the parts, I could name all the glands, I could like, it was just like to me, oh, I get all this, right? It was almost
Right.
like on the level of, I was really, really good at math. And then science was second, but I was really good at math for whatever reason. I don't even know why. It's just easy
Mm.
for me. And then even though I'm not like addition and subtraction kind of person, but I have a lot of visual spatial sense, like which makes me really good as a surgeon. Um,
I
and
believe it.
yeah, like it's more a felt sense of where
Yeah.
things are
Yeah.
in space. And so
Which, to be honest, I would think you would want in a surgeon.
yeah, exactly. Like I literally like, and it's because every once in a while people will remind me that they don't know where things are in the body because
Right.
I have seen the inside of the body. I don't, how many times I don't know, but so I have a visual sense and I forget that people don't. Like somebody said,
Right.
I learned where my liver was, and I thought, oh, okay. Like that was kind of like, kind of hit me like a,
Yeah.
you know. So it's just funny how, just my reality and, anyway, so I remember just learning where all the parts are, how they all worked, all that. That was very interesting to me. The other thing that was interesting to me is people's attitudes towards sex.
Mm,
Can't tell you why, but it was just something that interested me, just like people's attitude towards race was of interest to me, right? And people's attitudes towards genders and, so
well, it's interesting that you say that because the common theme in all three, right? Race, gender, and sex is power.
interesting.
There's this quote, I think it's by Oscar Wilde. He said, I'm I hope I don't botch it, but it says basically um, everything in the world is about sex,
Mhm.
except sex. Sex is about power.
Mm. Everything in the world is about sex, except sex is about power. Well, then it kind of seems like it would translate to everything in the world is about power.
Well, right? Because I mean, your relationship to your sexuality ultimately is your relationship to powers. So it's interesting when you say the things that interest you. I'm like, oh, there's been an underlying interest about
Mm,
power, which does
totally.
not surprise me because you're a powerhouse. So
Well, I just relationships between men and women, the differences, the conditioning about it, right? All of that, you know, how do so many men get involved in sexually abusing children? Like, what is that dynamic? I was abused for many years as a child, sexually. And so, yeah, the people that molested me were people I knew, right? And trusted, right? And so it created a lot of interest in, like, you know, everyone else is like, oh, what a villain he must have been, right? But I was like, no, but that's my dad. No, that's my stepdad. No, that's my uncle, right? And so I didn't have that feeling that they were villains.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of need to tamp it down, like to not expose it. For one, I wasn't even exposing it to myself, as crazy as that may sound. Like I wasn't acknowledging it, you know. In much the way I assume, like, sometimes people don't acknowledge racism or sexism.
Yeah.
I wasn't acknowledging, what are you talking about? You know, they didn't even, but the first time I heard the word molest is when I was exposing it, and I was probably like 19 years old. And somebody said, he's been molested you since la la la, you know, and I'm like, the word molest was like shocking to me, right? So just my relationship with it was just beginning to open up, and I was just trying to understand the experience of it. And there's a lot of ways that I think it's part of the training. I started to see it as part of the training for us as women, and for me as a woman, right? Is to tamp it down.
Yeah.
Right? Is to be be in so much shame that I tamped it down.
Yeah.
Right. And so recently I was in a workshop this summer, and it was a workshop with Perry Chase. She was leading it.
Yeah.
And really, really, really powerful weekend for me. But I said that because
We're talking about tamping down sexuality.
yeah, like there's this like, so in the presence of other people, I'm not, and this is a piece that I'm working currently with myself. In the presence of other people, I disconnect. I'm living outside my body when I'm I'm not right in the moment, because I actually, you know, wow, that's interesting, because I could really feel that. To acknowledge that I'm not living outside my body right now, right?
Yeah.
So because I love you, I think you're like, I just love you so much, and I've known you for so long, and I know how authentic you are, and so I trust that, right? Let me just pull.
That's how I feel about you.
Like I can open and be in myself when it feels safe. It's much like in a home.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and it's not a lot of places I feel safe. And it isn't even that somebody is a mean person. It's that people are conscious, right? And so when I get into into a large group and I would need to speak to them, the fear of being as conscious as I am in a field of non-consciousness. That makes sense?
Yeah, totally.
So I get terrified. Like I suddenly I have no access to what I know, right? Because I have to be in my body to know. So those are, anyway, so back to that, why I became a gynecologist. I think
Well, I want to actually back up and ask something, because I didn't realize that you went to medical school at 35. So I want to back up and highlight that. And I want to know, what were you doing before then? And then what inspired you at 35 to go to medical school? I mean, medical school is, it's a
First I'm gonna
it's a
say,
big commitment. It's not light fare to get into medical school. Just the prep alone to get in is really intensive. And so I'm so curious, what were you doing prior to that? And then what inspired you?
look, you know, I mentioned that I was good at math and science, so I always knew that. And again, when I think about sexism, I think, why did I go to college and not take any math or science? Right? I mean, that's not an accident.
Right.
And then what I did do is study psychology, because I'm still
Right.
I wonder all these things that I've been wondering since I was a little kid. I remember saying to my mother as a kid, saying, if all Black people and all white people got together, then we'd have all these brown people. And if everybody was brown, there wouldn't be any racism. Like there was that
Wow.
simplicity of it,
Yeah.
grappling with the solutions of that, and
Right.
it had to be lesson 9, right? And,
Yeah.
um, again, I have my whole family was multiple shades, multiple experiences with race, right?
Mm.
Okay, so to bring me to becoming a physician, I don't even know why I connected those two things, but um, because I was good at math and science,
Mm.
and I didn't take it. Instead, I started wondering how to clear up what seemed like a lack of so much confusion in the world. I wanted to
Mm.
understand the psychology of that. Like, why is the world so confused?
Right.
So it's sort of that kind of a quest. And no one had even finished high school in my family when I
Wow.
right. And so my siblings hadn't. None of them actually went through high school and finished it. I think,
Mm.
Iris later did, um,
And
and
where are you in just for people that are listening to give some context, where are you in the age range?
I'm the oldest.
Okay.
So because my parents were so conflicted and chaotic
Mm.
and pretty unavailable, I became the parental
Mm. Mm-hmm.
person. So Iris was only a year and a half younger than me, so there was no controlling her. But oh, I love Iris. But she's her own spirit. She's her
Yeah.
own thing,
Yeah.
right? And but my younger brother and sister, I had a sister 8 years younger and a brother 6 years
Mm.
younger. I pretty much parented them. And then I would like go to Coney Island at like, I don't know, 13, 14 years old with like 4 or 5 little kids on the train from the
Oh my,
Bronx. So that was
wow.
a long way. It's over an hour of a train ride. And
Yeah.
I'm a little kid who's really 12, 13, 14 years old, thinking I'm an adult.
Yeah.
I mean, acting like I'm an adult with them and I don't know that I would let my daughter do that, you know? So, I mean, just the difference in how I saw things at that
Mm.
age is just interesting. And so I don't know, I think I went into young adulthood, being like an old soul already. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember
For
just being in I started therapy at 19 years old,
sure. Mm.
right? And my therapist was like, you're grappling with things that people don't grapple with till they're like 40 or 50,
Wow.
right? And I will say this, I started doing at that point something called reevaluation counseling,
Mm.
or co-counseling it was called at the time. And it was, big in the Bay Area, in California, in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we did it was a lot of unlearning oppression,
Mm.
unlearning and taking a look at the dynamics of all the oppression. So I kind of have a more overviewed vision of how oppression works, that they
Mm.
all work the same in the sense that, there's a power, and there's, people that power is used against. And in that power, there's like lies.
Mm.
And then there's power behind it. And then
Right.
there's, they define the non-power group. And the set of lies then validates violence against them.
Mm.
And it's just across it fits all of the oppressions,
Right.
right? Violence against them, disinformation against them,
Right.
in equal use of the justice system against them,
Mm.
of all the powers, right? And literally they get killed
Yeah.
as a result of these lies. So I learned a lot of things about how oppression works.
Right.
And then we started even well, anyway, so we even looked at how adultism works and how we have to lie to children so they get to the place where they can lie about everybody else. Kind of interesting.
Right.
Okay, so So in my 20s, everything was about looking at oppression, looking at the sexual abuse. I started working in sexual abuse with teenagers. Then this particular place in Marin where I was living, I was in Nevada living at the time. And we had something called Sexual Abuse Treatment Program, CS.
Mm.
I remember that, CSATP, Sexual Abuse Treatment Program. And so while I was going to college, I was doing my undergraduate stuff. While I was going to college, I would drive the teenagers to and from counseling programs.
Wow.
But the other thing that they did in this program was, so again, we're looking at all the sides, right?
Right.
So, because I'm looking at oppression from all the sides.
Right.
I'm looking at sexual abuse now from all the sides. So this particular program actually had the offending parent in a counseling with the non-offending parent, right? And then adults having been abused. So we have this group where we all had therapy in this group. So
Wow.
it was this, again, I'm noticing, oh, we're looking at it from all these angles.
Yeah.
Which, if you tie that in with being of mixed heritage, I do that there too, right? So it's just, so the whole world is about looking at a 360 view of everything. So, which just allows me to have so much room for everyone in a sense, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so I did all that in my 20s. And one of those groups, it was all women. We had a women's group once, and we were talking about no limits for women. Right. And I remember, the thought came to me, like, the world says, here's my limits. That's it. That's my limits. I
Right.
can't move outside of that. But I'm like, yeah, no, my limits are more like this. I saw it already like this. Okay. And when they said no limits, I said, you mean it's even bigger than I think? Right. That's the logic my young mind was doing. And
Right.
I was like, does that mean I can go to medical school? Now, where did that come from? I don't know.
Wow. And when you had that realization, how old were you?
Late 20s.
Got it.
In my late 20s when I started to like put that together. I was good at math and science, right? So,
Right.
right, I would and I was in a program doing a master's in counseling because my undergraduate was in psychology.
Right.
And now I'm working in drugs and alcohol. And then I'm working in, not only am I working in drugs and alcohol, the people in my life are dealing with drugs and
Right.
alcohol. You see,
Right.
that's the crazy thing about it, right? Like anything I'm doing, it has to be something I've done.
Totally. Totally.
It's the only way it feels real in my system,
Yeah.
in a way, and I've had so much going on that I have plenty to work from. So I don't need to create
Yeah.
something.
Which I think, I mean, ultimately that's your gift, right?
Mm,
It's you are for me the embodiment of turning poison to medicine. I mean,
mm,
like
I love
literally you're a doctor,
it.
but
Yes.
also in terms of the alchemy process of
Mm,
taking all this stuff that, you know, in a way you could have just given up, and you took all of it and you got in there and you transformed it from lead into gold. And so you have all of this really rich, fertile
mm,
experience that, I mean, I know you use it in your practice and with your patients, but yeah,
mm.
I did not know this part of your story. This is so fascinating.
Oh my God. So I'm in the middle of a master's program. I start to tell myself, okay, no limits for women. I was already sort of questioning, did I want to continue doing this master? And the crazy thing is, I had interviewed to do a PsyD program at Rutgers, and they were taking 15
Oh,
people, and I was number 16, and I didn't get in. So then I went on and said, okay, well, I'll just go to San Francisco State, which is where I had my undergraduate. And
right.
it's sort of like the consolation prize, and everybody's like, we love that we got in. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Not that anything's wrong with it, but I was looking
Totally.
you know, there was nothing wrong with it, but it just was it was a backup plan for me to just go ahead
Right.
and do my master's program. And
Right.
so there I am in the middle of it. I'm getting A's and everything. I'm doing really well. I'm working in the projects, doing counseling, right?
Mm,
Now I would call it coaching, but they called it counseling.
right.
And I was in enrichment projects then. Um, and I lost the train of thought. I'm trying to get it.
We were talking about ending up in medical school. And so you were
Oh, I
saying
was in the
you had
master's.
applied, you were in the master's program, you weren't sure you want to continue, you had applied to the PsyD at Rutgers, and they were taking 15 and you were 16. And so
Yeah.
you were going to go to SF State.
Somebody there said, that just tells you, it was somebody who I was staying with while I was
Right.
interviewing. That just tells you you're very good and you can do anything you want. Somebody said that to me, right?
Yeah. On the heels of being told that, what is it? No limits for women.
Yes. And then I'm like, okay, can I go to medical school? I ended up going to Rutgers to medical school, which is kind of funny.
I know.
I didn't
I
even
know,
put
which
those
is
two
so,
together until years later.
yeah. When you were
That's how
saying
much.
that, I was like, oh my God, your journey really was to Rutgers, which is funny. I don't know if I told you this. When I, a couple of years ago, um, was applying to PhD programs, Rutgers was one of the places I applied.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Close enough to New York, but not in the middle.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And it's just funny because I was like homesick because I had been in California for 16 years by the time I got there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I had this no limits for women thing come into my mind. And when I said, because the other thing is I knew that if I finished my master's program, I wouldn't make anywhere near any more money than what I was already making. Like there was
Mm,
no money in it, right? And if I
right.
wanted to have a family and I wanted to have medical insurance or any of that stuff, that wasn't going to
Right.
be. And so that was part of the decision making, right? Here I am putting all this into it, and now I got to give free work for I don't know how many years, and I'm sitting there,
Right.
and I'm not going to do any better than I'm already doing because I'm already um psychologically, I have a lot of psychological work that I've done, and now really internal work, and now I'm ready. I could do a lot of what they were teaching me to do.
Right. Right.
um, I think I could probably talk all kinds of circles around them. I felt like that. And so I didn't really know what I was getting into, frankly, going into medical school. I had no idea. I mean, if I had nobody who even finished high school, I wasn't around people who definitely went through college, let alone, I had no idea. I've never been around anybody going to medical school. I didn't know what, but I assumed that, if people do it, it must be doable, right?
Yeah.
So I did. And I'll tell you the first,
And sorry, hold on, let me back up.
uh,
While you were applying to medical school, were you still in the master's program?
yes.
Okay.
Now I
Did you
stayed
finish
in
the, I'm just curious. Did you finish the master's program? No.
no,
Okay.
I was in the master's program already. So I didn't, it's interesting because financially, this was an important piece though, right? Because now I'm already in a program. I'm not doing
Right.
baccalaureate, bachelorette, or whatever they call it. I'm not doing post-graduation classes that financial aid wouldn't have covered.
Right. Got
Okay.
it.
So now I'm already in a program. I can
Right.
get financial aid. So here I am in the master's taking biology, physics,
No way.
chemistry, organic chemistry. Okay. So I spent 2 years taking those classes
Wow. This
so
is
that I have my prerequisite to get into medical school. Now,
yeah, it's funny, like your karmic strand really was medical school.
really, and
Yeah.
that, it's like I get chills. I'm like, God, like, um, so now I'm in therapy, right? I have a new therapist now, right? And I go to her and I say, I want to lose weight. I want to have a baby.
Mm.
I want to quit smoking. I want to get a divorce from my husband.
Oh my God.
And I want to get into medical school. And I gave her those 5 things. Those are my goals. Now, I don't know why those were my goals. Those were it.
Right.
But I wanted to quit smoking because I was like in my late 20s, 29 or so. Um, I wanted to lose weight. I wanted, and I was pretty heavy then too.
Yeah.
I've been as much as 300 pounds. So this has been a lifelong thing, but I wanted to, get into medical school is one of them, have a baby, because I had been trying for 15 years and had 3 ectopic pregnancies. And I finally had to get an IVF treatment, and, financially that was a problem. They were denying me denying any treatment, all that other stuff. That's how I ended up with the ectopics, because they gave me other treatments that then caused me to have ectopics.
Jeez.
So I had 3 ectopic pregnancies in about, they were like 9 months apart. I'd get pregnant and then they would have to take it out. I'd get pregnant 9 months later and then they'd take it out and then 9 months later.
Wow.
All of that was after they tried to open up my tubes, which were blocked.
Hence going back to this calling for being a gynecologist.
Yes.
Okay.
There you go. All connected. And they didn't have things like ultrasound yet, right? So the procedures they had to do to figure out that I have an ectopic was very different, right? And which now I understand as a gynecologist, but at the time I didn't. And so so here's the financial pieces, because of course I'm just this broke kid from South Bronx, right? Right. And so and it never occurred to me to worry about the money of doing it, because I hear people say, I can't do that, I don't have the money. But
Right.
I never felt, I don't know why, but I never felt like I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
That's,
I mean, I know you, so that doesn't surprise me.
oh my God. It's when I look back at it, it's like, how come I didn't think about the money? Everybody else does. Right. But this is like me and the disconnect with people is because I have to
Right.
not listen to all the messages of the conditioned
Yeah.
way of being.
Yeah.
So I have
Totally.
to connect. And I think, for me right now, my challenge is to pull people in that are conscious, because
Yeah.
my world has been ghetto, drugs, alcohol, being of color, that's in my world, people that are not
Yeah.
educated, right? And so that's what I tend to attract.
Well, that's where all the power is. So then we're back to this.
Yes,
So
okay.
then we're back to this point from the
Yeah.
beginning. We're back to this point from the beginning, Teresa, where you are power. I mean, you and Iris, right? We've been saying this to you guys for how long do I know you? 10 years?
12. Since
12 years?
2012.
Yeah. So 12 years.
Yeah.
You guys come from power, you are power.
Yes.
Your presence is power. So to me, it's funny you talk and you're like, it's the ghetto. And I'm like, it's the underworld.
Yes. But it's what's
Like, duh, of course.
but I tried to come out of it. That's my point.
Why? Why
I
would you
don't
do
know, because
that?
I didn't know all that. I just knew that I just thought that I needed to get into the approval zone. Right? I needed to get into the approval zone of whoever was in power, right? That's sort of, and that wasn't a conscious thought, but I feel like a lot of what I did was like I didn't know how to talk to that world, right? Like why do I feel like that? I feel like I can't talk to that world. I came out of the ghettos not having the language and the mores, the way to be, like literally I'm getting ready to go to DC with the gang, right? And so I'm like, I don't even have those kinds of clothes, right? You know what I mean? I'm already like,
Yeah, but it's like yes, and uh you are it. You have it. It reminds me of this quote that Joseph Campbell says. He says that women don't need to make the hero's journey.
mm,
Already there. Actually, I'll read you the exact quote because
yes, I got
it's very on par with what we're talking about. So he says, women don't need to make the journey. In the whole of mythological journey, the woman is there. All she has to do is realize that she's the place that people are trying to get to.
that's great.
And that's you. It's like, okay, whatever. We'll buy you a suit. Do you know what I mean? But You are it. You are the thing.
Mm, I think that about you. I
That's why
do.
we get along so well. We come from the same place.
I have this vision of you being on stage. I can't even remember who you were talking to, but you were just like, it was something that hit you the wrong way. And you turned to that person and you're like, and you cut through all the cheese. Right? And I'm like, holy, like the directness with which you would speak, I would be like, I would just be so inspired. I'm like, I love that.
That's how I feel about you.
The thing is to getting me to talk sometimes, it's getting me to talk, I think. Um, just my journey in orgasmic meditation has been uh it has been a huge uncovering of
Yeah.
my sense of having power.
Yeah, totally.
Um, and sometimes I wish the journey were a little faster, although I don't want to get older. Right? Sometimes I
Although
wish,
I do have to say, you make aging
oh
look
yeah.
and feel amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all the energy, it's all the
Yeah.
not believing the hype of what everybody else, and not going on the same, not going on the false narratives
Yeah.
about what aging is, right? And
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be retiring. I'm like, no, I'm not even close. Right. I'm not even close to retiring. I have a lot to do.
Yeah.
Can't even fit it all in.
Yeah. You have a calling on your life.
Yes, I do. And
Yeah.
so I know we went a bunch of places. Let's go
Okay,
back to,
wait. So I want to go back to, okay,
yeah.
so you were in this master's program, you'd taken all these classes, which
Mhm.
is such a trip that you had taken those classes for a counseling program, because usually they don't
Right.
have
They just
that.
didn't, yeah, but they just weren't watching what I was enrolling in.
Totally.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm getting all
So
my
I want
financial
to,
aid.
okay, so I want to know how we got to Rutgers Medical School.
Um, so I went those 2 years, and then I had to do the MCATs. I made a very close friend in the middle of MCATs, another African American woman from Oakland. She was 9 months pregnant with a second kid, also trying to get into medical school. So we became really close friends. Like we're still really close today. We ended up being surgery partners at Highland Hospital, and we
Oh,
both became
wow.
OBGYNs. So, and she was one of those people who had been the whole gamut. There's nothing I couldn't say to her and that safely.
Mm.
Nothing. I remember like saying, I get stuck and I can't talk to people that are not in our culture. And I don't know what that is. I feel like my knowledge is in my body. And then when I get
Mm.
scared, I can't get access.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was before I knew OM. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I don't understand. I know this sounds crazy, but it feels like my knowledge comes from my body.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not in my head. And I don't have it memorized in lists or whatever that these
Right.
are doing. I have to integrate it. I have to listen to it slowly. I have to digest it. Like seriously, that's how I learned. And when I got to OM, it was like, oh, I'm beginning to get it. Right? I could feel that bubble that I
Yeah.
would hold it down, and I could go into it and not avoid it. And that's the difference, right?
Right.
And then I was like, I was right. It was in my body.
Yeah.
So anyway, so how I got to Rutgers is, let's see. So let me go back to this therapist before I say that.
Yeah.
Because the therapist, when I told her all of what I wanted to do, and I was already in my first semester of biology, no, chemistry. It was biology and chemistry, but it was the chemistry. The first exam that we had, I failed. And I'm not used to failing tests, but it was working full time and I couldn't study. And
Right.
psychology didn't require studying. For me, it was just
Right.
like,
But organic chemistry does.
yes, exactly.
Totally.
And so that I didn't get. And she said, you're going to have to stop working. I'm thinking, well, how am I going to do that? Right. And she literally helped me get on disability for that year, right? State disability, so I could stop working and I could focus on, right? What a gift this therapist was in
Yeah.
many,
I
many
love
ways.
her.
When I I had to give up like $20,000 to secure 3 IVFs to have my daughter, right? I had to
Yeah.
give them $20,000 all on credit cards right
Wow.
before I went bankrupt. I'm sure this is not legal, but this was a long time ago. She's 30, what? She's 30, she's gonna be 31 in a couple of months.
Your daughter?
Yes, yes, yes.
Wow.
Um, and I had to pay for 1.5. That's why it was $20,000. I had to pay for 1.5, and they would guarantee me 3. It was a shared cost of people. Some people will need 3, some people will need 1, some 2. So I got this doctor who was doing that so that we didn't have to pay quite as much to have.
Right.
And so I got pregnant on the first one. Um, but I was short like $1,000 and this therapist loaned it to me.
I love her.
And I was just like, oh my God. And then so she helped me get off. She helped me stop working, get on disability. And then the second year of my prerequisites to get into medical school, my job had some insurance that said, well, you just have to tell us why you have this, but you can get a second year of disability. So there I was, 2 years. For the whole 2 years that I was taking these classes, I was covered with this disability. And then in that year, they required that I apply for Social Security disability. And I'm thinking, oh, that's ridiculous. They're not going to give me, and
Right.
they gave me the diagnosis of dysthymia.
Hmm.
That's what the therapist said. I had dysthymia.
Hmm.
It was not completely incorrect. But and I remember they denied it, and then the insurance company says you have to rebuttal it because if they still deny it, we're going to give you a lawyer. Because I guess they pay less if I get my Social Security, right? So I
Right.
ended up getting on Social Security. The end thing is, so now I have this Social Security check coming in all the way through medical school.
Unbelievable.
Is that crazy? I'm like, I
Wild.
felt like God just laid the carpet,
Totally.
right? So it's crazy. I never tell these stories in this much detail because it's like,
I love this.
who would think? How do I find my way around all these things I want to do?
Yeah.
You know, um, I mean the IVF. They none of the insurance. I had 3 good insurances, but none of them would cover my IVF. And so what did I
Right.
do? I collected credit cards. All had $5,000 limits. I paid the whole thing with credit cards. I knew I was going to medical school, so I was going to not stop work, and then I would go on bankruptcy, and it would last 7 years. It's going to take me longer than that to get to the medical school and training. So I mean, there's all these different places
Totally.
that I'm setting things up, right? And so, and I still keep doing this, but that's another thing. So then so I take the MCATs. I apply to 5 schools.
Mm.
They all accept me,
Wow.
right? And I go to Rutgers because there were more people of color there. And they
Mm.
had like a counseling office that dealt with dealing with people of color issues going to medical school.
I love that.
Right. So they were more inviting of creating
Yeah.
the diversity there. So I ended up going there, and it was close enough to New York. It was close enough to all my family, and
Yeah.
I didn't realize I wasn't gonna have time to see any of them, but
Yeah.
right. So yeah, that's how I got to Rutgers. And I wanted to get back to the East Coast because I had been out in the West Coast for 16 years. I was homesick, you know. And then,
Amazing.
what's funny, after 16 years, home is not home anymore. Home is just here. But
Right.
I had to go back to see that.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. God,
Yeah.
that's such a cool story. Okay, so I think we have time for one more question, and then I would like to do part 2, maybe next week.
Okay.
Um, okay, gosh, let me see what I want to ask you. Okay, how about this? This is what we'll end on.
Okay.
If you could tell women
Mm.
one thing to know about their sexuality, and their sexuality related to, we'll say, like all aspects of their health, like spiritual health, emotional health, physical health, what would you say?
Mm. I try to create this conversation a lot with women. So
Mm.
let's see, what do I say? I talk about because that's been my freedom, right? I also talk about sex bomb, right? Sometimes I talk about that. Because they're two different things, and I use them both differently, right?
Yeah.
They're experience. One is with myself and one is with another person. So um, when we get taught to hold down our sex, right? We're also taught to hold down all of our power.
Mm.
When we can't talk about sex, we really can't talk about anything.
Mm.
Right? And all the parts that we hold down is what keeps our addictions in place. And right, like I haven't done any of the addiction work that you're doing. I don't know how this conflicts with what you're going to say. That probably doesn't, but I'm just going to say this. It's the bubble that I talked about where everything is underneath,
Mm-hmm.
right? That bubble that I hold down when I get scared and can't access it,
Mm-hmm.
that is held in place even to this day, today. When I feel the need to hold that in place, I'm still using my addiction to do it.
Mm.
When I'm afraid to drop into it, it's the addiction that I do. So all of the health journeys that I help people go on has to do with releasing and opening and being receptive,
Mm.
right? So the fastest way I know is through sexuality. When we open that energy, it opens up the energy to take care of ourselves, to blow past all the restrictions that we've been taught to hold in place. Something like that.
I love that. And then, well, I have time for one more, so I'm asking you one more. Hold on. What benefits would you see orgasmic meditation providing for women?
Hmm. Um, well, the benefit of becoming authentic is one, and that includes things like letting go of depression. Again, that's from this. Letting go of anxiety, same thing. Letting go of addictions, same thing, right? Having joy instead of, oh, I don't even know where I heard this, but I use it as my tagline. How would your life be different if you lived by desire instead of obligation? I don't remember where I heard that. It's somewhere in my own journey,
I
but it
love that.
stuck with me and it's my tagline. I've used it on my website. How would your life be different if you lived by desire rather than obligation? So I ask people that, or I've said it in a group of women, they'll go like, oh my God, and they'll come back and tell me what a profound question that was.
Mm.
And it was for me. So what women get from OM is, their power, their authenticity, their love coming out, their light shining, all of those. The
Yeah.
depression piece is really big too, I mean, because that's we deal with that a lot. I don't even know if everybody, the whole idea of using medications just that's just, if you're on a medication, I want to help you get off if you want that,
Yeah.
you know.
I
No
love
more.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
health, not meds.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep,
Thank you for doing this. This has been just an
fun.
absolute joy and a pleasure. And I loved you immensely before this interview, but love you so much more now. There were just pieces of your story I didn't know after 12 years of knowing you,
Yeah.
that I just am so delighted and honored that you shared. And we will be back for part 2.
All right.
Yeah, I love you.
Love you too. See you
Bye.
soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us in Journey into the Mystic. We will see you all again soon.